قتل الإنسان ما أكفره.
Bismillah wa salawatu wa salamu ala rasulullah amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today we'll be going over Dan Gibson's very famous documentary on Petra and MECCA. He makes a lot of claims, a lot of them really dumb, so let's go over them. So the first claim he makes is that, he makes a claim as to why the true reason archaeological work is forbidden here. Now, the real reason is because of Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Wahhab Rahimahullah, and I actually have one of his books here. And it's one of the most fundamental and basic books you can ever read in the Islamic literature on Tawheed. Basically, in 1700, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Wahhab started a reformist movement to go back to the Salaf, and he decided to destroy all the idols and old architecture of the Muslims before that. Now, not the idols of pagan Arabs, idols as in statues of saints. Before that, they used to make tawassul or intercession to these items, and also intercession to the Muslim saints and their belongings and graves. This guy was not a world leader who knew the truth and tried to suppress it. He was a rebel, a reformist, and this was way before people like Crone proposed the ridiculous theory of Petra being the city of Mecca. Saudi Arabia follows his ideology, which is why they forbid it in Mecca and Medina. If you're finding something that might lead people to make tawassul to it. And this isn't a cope story, by the way. A lot of people say, oh, this is a cope story. This is very well documented by both Muslims and non-Muslims. So it's not a cope story. Like, it's not... Petra being Mecca is not that big. Alright? He claims there has not been, like, a lot of effort on history of the Arabs, or the narrator claims at least. Suhaib al-Bukhari, who spent 16 years of his life traveling the Abbasid Caliphate verifying isnads, because actually he didn't really collect that much. He actually just verified if the hadiths and other works were legit or not, or the hundreds of hadith collectors and the thousands of hadith analyzers who dedicate their entire life to see if these chains and narrations really added up. We have entire biographies of people in these isnad chains to see if they really did meet the next person in the chain. And Orientals as well, have studied Islam for about 3 to 4 centuries, so it's not like the West hasn't tried. He makes a claim about Mecca having walls and temples. Mecca wasn't walled. You're basing it off of a single report in Ibn Ishaq, which I'm pretty sure is considered widely to be not authentic. And you need to prove it is authentic, that is correctly attributed. And the only major temple we know of in the Islamic tradition is the Kaaba in Mecca. Now for the next claim about trade in Mecca. Dan Gibson makes a claim about how the incense trade was non-existent in the Hijaz without providing any proof or sources or any of the like. On 1027, he makes a very bad mistake in that which he shows Mecca as not being on the caravan route, while showing Medina, which only came to after Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But now let's assume he means Yathr, which was the original name. But another problem arises in that he also seems to think that Muslims traveled halfway across the Arabian Peninsula to sell in Medina instead of going to the other cities surrounding Petra. Claim on vegetation. He also makes a claim about man asking for grapes, and as you guys can probably guess, it could have been from trade and have been grown there. They also add it wasn't time for grapes during this time, even though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the translation I'm reading says that. Just put on screen. There was no fruit in the time of Mecca due to trade, and that it wasn't grape season. He also addresses, I think, a report Ibn Ishaq, which I already talked about trees and waters in Mecca. And as far as I know, we have no way of verifying if that is legit or not. If you can provide proof that report is legit, mention in the comments. And the last thing he mentions here is grass. And the grass in those hadiths are referring to camel grass like this. And I think even beds of grass may grow due to after rainy season. So, yeah. Claim about the maps. So Dan Gripson brings up 3 maps that come much after 7th century. And you can observe this by these sources I'm going to post right now. Now, his excuse is that they base off of Ptolemy's work, but here's the problem. One of them is from the 1700s, and in the 1700s, they were not using Ptolemy's work. Also, I don't see how Ptolemy's documentation of Arabia is somewhat disproving of Mecca, as he was thousands of miles away from Arabia and probably didn't know all details of Arabia and cities. And Dan Gibson even admits he did a bad job at Arabia Desertea, which is where Hijaz region is located, just like the desert region of Arabia. The claim of the Alat temple. Let me take a sip. He makes a claim on Alat temple. How do we know if it's dedicated to Allah? And if you have symbolism in it, don't using Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu will have made its destruction mandatory. The Hadith literature is very clear on the Prophet and his companions destroying all public idols. Makes claim about pilgrimage. Now, I don't think we have that much actual proof of pilgrimage to Petra other than some marks on the rocks, which I don't know what dating for. And there aren't that many written or oral reports from inhabitants of it either. Claim of Qibla. Now I'm going to quote David King, who Gibson family just hate with a burning passion. Of course, these 3 directions are the modern values, unattainable to anyone before modern times, which is unfortunate because both the information presented and its conclusions based thereon are all invalid, since modern directions based on modern coordinates are totally irrelevant to the study of early mosques. Gibson's discovery, as he puts it, that most early mosques face accurately towards Petra is fortuitous because the first generation of Muslims had no means whatsoever to find direction of Petra accurately to within a degree or two. Not least because they had no access to geographical coordinates, modern ones, or even modern mathematics. Now, we don't have any solid proof of the Arabs having access to this complex mathematics. They barely knew more than basic arithmetic. So David King says it only makes sense that they would use simple local astronomical methods of navigation, which are closer to cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, what I mean. Right in degrees like longitude and latitude, which would have been useless to the Arabs. And actually, to this day, a lot of rural Muslims just pray general directions. Like my father and his grandfather and their grandfather, they all just prayed to east because that's where they knew the Kaaba was. They didn't so if that was done in the 20th century and 21st century, that just proves the point further that they didn't have the capabilities to do that. So, and he also makes this funny claim that everyone just forgot about Petra. So all these thousands of people in the chain who were analyzed and where they traveled, their honesty, they all just had mass amnesia and forgot Petra. Alright then, let's go with that. Becca is Petra. Now our friend Dan Gibson makes a very bold claim about Petra being named Becca after the earthquake instead of it being called that because Hajar crying. Also, the psalm comes a few centuries where it mentions Becca, and that was way before the earthquake even happened. Quraysh tribe. So he makes a claim about the Abbasids going to an area around Petra to look for a member of Quraysh, and my question is, what is your source? Abdullah and the soil. So he makes a claim about the soul of Abdullah Sans, who was the Prophet Muhammad's father, and the fact that they were all in early biographies. Now, how do we know this really happened and wasn't just hearsay that got popular? Hadith's a very detailed process of authentication. I'm pretty sure Ibn Ishaq has not passed this. Just because it's dated closer doesn't mean it's more legit. Bukhari is more authentic than Ibn Ishaq because he proved from several other people and sources that narration chains, which are a process of teacher telling or repeating the same story to a student multiple times to the point where the student memorizes. It was also partially due to written reports. I think As-Zuri wrote a lot of written reports as well. He examined these and see if they actually happened, if they actually did meet each other, if they actually did teach each other, if they said these really occurred. to the point where we have entire biographies of the people in the Isnad or the narration chain. And you might doubt the memory, but think about this for a second. If the most important man in the world said something about faith, or did something, wouldn't you ingrain into your brain? And the Arabs had excellent memory. They memorized the lineage of livestock and an entire book, the Quran, and all their poetry. And the process of transmission happened over many years. It's like saying the same sentence 3,000 times. It becomes ingrained into your head. We also like to rely on more than one chain, although sometimes allowed if the chain is filled with people of great memory and high status. Oh, we're going to more funny claims now. High and low side. Okay, this point I'm not going to address that long, but it's obvious that Mecca has huge mountains and mountain ranges, as you can see in this picture. So yeah, there you go. There's the high and low side. Done. Claim about stones. So, I don't see any sources for why a place of Al-Haram, a place of no fighting, really needs stones to mark it as a place of Al-Haram. Like, yeah. Second fitna. So for this section, I'm going to give some historical context. So very boring if you already know it. If you already know the context of the second fitna, then just dump this timestamp. If you don't, you better listen. So after the Prophet Muhammad died, the Shura Council, or like electoral council, chose Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to be the caliph. They chose the leaders Abu Bakr, Uthman radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, and then Ali radiallahu anhu to be ruler, each one ruling after the death of the one before him. These leaders were called the four righteous caliphs, and their empire today is known as the Rashidun Caliphate. Uthman radiallahu anhu was killed by rebels, and the Muslim world split on this issue. Ali radiallahu anhu was elected caliph shortly after, and he only killed the direct murderers. But Muawiyah rahimahullah, the governor of Syria and a relative of Uthman radiallahu anhu, wanted everyone involved dead. Ali radiallahu anhu could not do that, because a lot of the former rebels were his supporters and they also repented. Muawiyah rahimahullah declared war for this, and they both had a war. Rahimahullah, Muawiyah rahimahullah won after one of Ali's sons, Hassan, turned into Muawiyah rahimahullah after Ali radiallahu anhu's death. Muawiyah rahimahullah then started the Umayyad Caliphate. So Dan Gibson says Zubair rahimahullah got mad because the Umayyad changed their capital from Mecca to Damascus. But here's the problem. Mecca was never the capital of even the Rashidun Caliphate. They used Medina until Ali, who was one of the righteous caliphs who came before the Umayyad Caliphate, changed it to Kufa. So Ibn Zubair actually just didn't like Yazid, which is why he revolted. Yazid was a tyrant who changed religion of Islam and did a lot of our horrible things, killed a lot of Sahaba. So actually, Ibn Zubair didn't break it. It caught on fire and then it was rebuilt by him. He also brings up a contradiction in that the army had to return to Damascus because the old caliph died, which according to him would take about 43 days. And he also brings up the successor only lasted 40 days. But here's the problem. Muawiyah II, or Yazid's successor, is actually predicted to last between 20 days to 4 months, but likely no more or no less than 2 months. So there is no contradiction, unless you want to shoehorn the fact that it's Petra. So now he mentions a report, which I assume is Tabari, which I'm not sure has been verified as Sahih, about Zubair's brother bringing him horses and camels. And this means they went to Mecca during Samia. Totally, bro. Totally. Now, you do know that horses and camels can really help you in a battle. They were almost vital to the Muslim invasions of Byzantium and Persia. He also mentions Tabari, doesn't mention where New Kaaba was. Maybe because it was presumed that it wouldn't be moved to somewhere across the peninsula by the reader. So according to Gibson, Zubair moved to Mecca because it was safer, then went back to Petra, and then lost Hajjaj. But wait a second. Didn't Hajjaj damage the Kaaba according to your own sources? How would he damage it in Petra if it was already destroyed, it wasn't rebuilt, and wasn't even there? What? Now let's go to the things that just don't make sense in this theory. in the same books Gibson uses, it's noted that Marwan II went on a campaign to gain allegiance, and he gained the most support in the provinces Syria and Egypt, which is where Petra is. Also, the pagan Arabs ruled the Muslims in the same books he uses, and as we know, Petra was ruled by the Ghassanid Arabs, who were Christians. Why would the Ghassanid Arabs allow pagans to 1. Practice their religion, and 2. Give them enough authority to kick out Muslims who are also monotheists? He makes a video called Where Were the Romans, but the real question is, where were the Ghassanids? And the Prophet Muhammad somehow made the trip with Abu Bakr while being hunted down in less than 8 days. And they also spent 3 nights in a cave, which means it would only take 5 days for them to go across the peninsula on camel while being hunted down. So this is nothing. Nothing compared to the contradiction you brought up. There's also a problem by the fact that all of the early Quranic manuscripts are in the Hijazi script, and the oldest one, or the Birmingham manuscript, came from Uthman radiallahu anhu, which I know you Islam haters love resorting to. But sadly, Birmingham manuscript, which is in the entire Quran, but the Birmingham manuscript is the exact same as the modern one, so sorry. Now the Nabateans write the same way. The proof that we have of the literary style, we have almost no proof of their literary style. We also have many Quranic and Islamic inscriptions all over the Caliphate, but strangely none in Petra or even in general region of Nabatea. Also, the Muslims are very obsessed with destroying all idols, but Petra is filled with them. Prophet Muhammad walked into Mecca himself and destroyed all the idols by the Kaaba. And this is actually where all the pagans put their idols. So he destroyed them. There will be no more in Petra. And there's also destruction outside of the Kaaba, as you can see in this hadith. Yeah, so I guess I'm done here. Please tell me if I did anything wrong, if I missed anything, and I might make a featured video, inshallah, going over comments and objections to this whole video. This wasn't as organized as the other ones. I just wanted to, read out all my notes on this. I might make a better video on it, inshallah. Who knows? Assalamu alaikum. Till next time.